What's up guys, Coop here, and today I'm going to be showing you guys a build I like to call the Shadowdancer. So this build, its sort of premise is basically you want to be able to get out of combat while technically still in it. So basically you're going to be trying to find ways of teleporting around, getting invisible, and sort of cloaking yourself or stunning people. That's sort of the premise of this guy. This guy is like a CC master. He does a lot of crowd control based abilities and a lot of ways of getting himself out of combat so that he doesn't get, whoop-de-wopped with any abilities. So, let's actually dive in. So the first thing that we're going to be looking at is the attributes. These are kind of your stats and most important to look at. So what you basically do with this build is you want to have high wits, so a primary of wits, a secondary of finesse, and maybe a few points in the constitution. The reason that we're putting a lot of points into wits, though, is for that high crit chance in initiative. You want to make sure that you are the first person to start combat. You want to make sure that you can do setup and everything that you really need to do. What's also really nice is the crit chance. Crit chance is just really great. Now, of course, you do have, backstab, which can always crit. But keep in mind that you don't always get situations where everything's just perfect. The first round of combat can oftentimes be a little hard to get right behind somebody. So it's important that you actually have that crit chance. And then of course you want to get finesse because it increases the damage of your finesse based weapons, and it also is just really nice for your skills as well. Now let's actually talk about abilities. Now abilities, you can go a variety of different ways. You can put some points into warfare. You can put some points into a variety of other things as well. Maybe some into necromancer too to increase your healing. But the general rule of thumb though is obviously you want to get scoundrel because you want to be able to cast scoundrel spells. It just makes sense. And then also you want to put at least 2 points into polymorph. Now later on I'll be showing you guys why we do polymorph. It just opens up your kit a lot more, so it's very nice to have that. And then lastly, you're going to be wanting to put a bunch of points into dual wield. Now, why do you put points into dual wield? Well, obviously daggers are one-handers and it's really nice to do dual daggers. But it also increases your dodge, which is super nice. So having on this character at least 10% dodge and 5% damage is very helpful. So that's very nice to have indeed there. Now the next I have is sneaking. The reason I have sneaking on here is it's actually useful in combat. You can actually sneak around and hit people really hard and you get a nice little sneak bonus. Now keep in mind you're not going to be sneaking in combat all that much, but it makes a really baller nice opener. Now let's talk about talents. Talents, we have a variety of ones that we can use here. Gorilla is sort of controversial. Because it's only good for openers, it's not that good, but if done correctly, with a variety of different things, you can make this do massive amounts of damage, and that's why I put it up there. But I can perfectly understand if you guys do not add this to your build, but for what I like in sort of my class fantasy, Gorilla seemed to really hit it. Now the next is Hothead. Hothead is definitely one of the best ones to have, especially with all the escapes I'm going to be showing you guys. When you're at maximum life, basically you get 10% crit chance and 10% more accuracy. So basically you want to make sure that you have close to 100% accuracy as possible because you don't want your stuff missing. Otherwise you get like owned like that. So it's important to have that. And also with all that crit chance that we were building with the dual wielding, we now have 10% more crit. So we have now 20% crit, which is super nice, and then not to mention not even including what we get in gear. Next I put Lone Wolf up there just because Lone Wolf really powers up your character, and you can definitely learn how to sort of play around, and you can really fulfill your class fantasy without having to reroll or learn from mistakes. So that's really nice. Now there are some other ones that you can do, like All Skilled Up, Bigger and Badder, Comeback Kid. See, that's just a few of them. You can do Leech just from that. Parry Master is super good. Parry Master increases your dodge by 10% while dual wielding, so you get a lot more dodge, which is also really nice. And then there's a few other ones that are really cool, but basically it's Divinity Original Sin 2. You can build your character how exactly you really want. So let's actually dive into combat and see what we can do. Now let's actually dive into combat. Allow me to show you a variety of the different spells that we're going to be using. So obviously the first thing you need to know is your sneak ability. So being able to sneak past the character is super nice, but keep in mind you have to look at how sort of the area looks. So the light red areas are areas that you can obviously sneak at without having to worry about being caught. The more darker or more brighter red, I would say, honestly, is the cone of what players can see, or the NPCs. So we don't want them to attack us, so making sure that you're out of the red area is very nice, and staying in that sort of darker, lighter, transistent red is very nice to have. So that's the first thing to keep in mind when you're doing this build. Next, we're actually going to be looking at the variety of different categories I have for my character. I specifically like the undead race for the rogue fantasy because, one, you get that nice little lockpicking skill, and two, you can do some really cool stuff with time warp. So that's very important to do. Time warp does not work on your character, it works on another character. So when in combat, make sure that you're not just all alone and depending on time warp, because time warp is actually meant for your companions. So let's actually dive in and see what we can do here. So the first thing is you have your two main attacks. You have Backlash, which is nice because it teleports you and you do some backstab damage. Very nice. Great amount of damage there. Next is Flurry, which does a variety of quick little attacks, which are really nice as well, but also receives a bonus from Finesse, so that's why we're building Finesse. So these are your sort of main attacks besides obviously your basic attack, so that's sort of your go-to spells. Next is what I like to call your CCs, or crowd controls. These are abilities that you use to stop enemies. So you have two different ones here. Chicken Claw turns them into a chicken for 2 turns and is resisted by physical armor. That's why one of the reasons why we have the polymorph skill. Next is good old Chloroform, which does a bunch of magical damage, and if they have no magical armor, it puts them to sleep. And it doesn't break being invisible, so that's really nice as well. So the reason that I have these two abilities is one is for physical and one is for magical. Very nice, especially if, say, for example, my companion here, Lose, she does magical damage and manages to break the shield. I can use good old Chloroform, or say I'm doing a lot of damage, I can use Chicken Claw and turn them into a chicken. So we have two different abilities that can help us out here. So that's very nice to have. Now the next thing that we're going to be talking about are sort of your, I like to call them combat boosters. They're two different abilities that can really help us out. So Time Warp obviously gives a character another turn immediately after their turn. So I like doing this when I'm like invisible or sneaking around. I can just put Time Warp on somebody and have them do some nice plays, especially if you have a healer. Next is Adrenaline. Adrenaline, you gain 2 action points immediately, but you lose those the next turn. See, if you have the Lone Wolf perk, it's not that bad because obviously you get the maximum amount of action points. So having that's really not that bad because you already had a lot of action points to begin with. So that's really nice. And it doesn't break invisibility. So these two abilities can really change how combat works. Next is Cloak and Dagger. This is just a nice little teleport, just so you can get across the battlefield. Now, this ability, there's a lot of other really good abilities, but I really like the fact that you just have a teleport, which just allows you a lot more mobility. Say like I just killed a target and I just put myself in stealth, you can actually go back and like teleport right behind somebody and be able to not use too many action points. And it's only 1 action point. Super nice. Next I got Spread Your Wings, which is another way of getting around. The reason that I do this ability is, one, I'll show you real quick. It gives you the flight ability, which allows you to just go all over the place. Say there's higher ground, you can actually jump on higher ground with it. And that's just really nice to have. Also, you just look really fucking awesome. Like, I mean, look at that. Boom. Undead skeleton with giant wings. Like, that's just awesome. And just having all these abilities is super nice for getting around. So that's very important. Next is what I call getting out of combat maneuvers. So you have two. If you do the undead. Now, if you do another race, this one also works really well. But play undead is a great way of getting out of combat. It resets every 6 turns. Now, what it does is it allows you to stay dead for 3 turns. And what you can do with this is wait till you have invisibility, or a way of stealthing out of combat, or wait till you have one of these up. So the point of the matter is you have all these different ways of getting out of things. Next is Chameleon Cloak, which basically makes you invisible for 2 turns. So how this exactly works is you have a variety of different things here. You have ways of CCing somebody and getting them out of combat. You have ways of escaping and getting into combat. You have ways of getting out of it. And what's really cool is you have Play Dead if you really need to wait on one of these abilities to pop back up and you don't want to take any damage. So let's actually dive in and do a quick little attack on somebody. So here we go. Boom. So we got our opener here. Now the next thing I know is I look and I see, okay, she has no physical armor. So I can just boop, pop her into a chicken. Now the next thing I can do here is I walk around and do a good old backstab. And then from there, I can also do another backlash if I wanted to. So that's like one way to kill someone. So, super nice there. Now let's actually fight somebody who is a little bit more challenging. Okay, so now we have a variety of different enemies here that we can attack. So what we're going to do is now we can actually attack them. As we have already put ourselves into sneak mode, we're going to go over and backstab. Okay, now we got him mad. Let's also get this person mad too. Let's just make this really rough combat-wise. Okay. Now what I have here is I have a variety of different stuff going on. I don't have many action points, so what I'm going to do, pop adrenaline, give myself some more action points here. And then from here, I'm going to do backlash to get behind this guy. And then what I can do here is I can turn him into a chicken. And then this guy is going to get ready to attack me, so what I need to do is I need to find a way to get out of combat. So what I do is Chameleon Cloak. And get myself out of there. So as you can see here, we've escaped combat, we've done a good amount of CCs, and now there's only one target left. Now, say I were to somehow get caught while being stealthed, I have multiple ways of getting around the battlefield. So, for example, teleport, and then I can do a good old flurry from the back. They're doing all in on this person. And then what we can do again is do another flurry. Then we can also be like, yo, go over here, do a good old time warp on him, give him another turn, make him really powerful. Now say they were to attack me, I would have an escape and I have another escape as well. That's sort of the point of the Shadowdancers. You really want to be able to get out of combat. So what I can do here is this guy is the lower end of the target. So we're going to do that, and then we can do a good old flurry attack because we already have that nice backstab damage. Boom, that person's dead. Now next, we have Chloroform, but he has magical armor, of course. Oh, he actually killed that guy. Interesting. But we'll just do a nice little thing there. Now keep in mind, I did save this right before, so if important characters like this do die, don't actually keep that. But this is a game I've already previously saved. Okay, so we're actually seeing that he's hitting me. It's hurting a lot. So I'm going to give myself a little bit of a boost here. We're going to walk behind him, and we're going to do a good old flurry attack. And do a nice little backstab. And another backstab. Ooh, see that miss? That's why you want to have accuracy. Which is weird, because I had 105% accuracy, so didn't really quite make sense there, but it is what it is. Now we have a way of getting out of that, so we're going to teleport up behind again and do another flurry attack. And do a nice little attack again. There we go. And there you have it. That is the Shadowdancer. Now obviously I am showing on a character with really crappy daggers, but you guys get the general gist of how it exactly works. We have ways of different teleports, you have different ways of doing CCs, you have different ways of influencing your combat, and you have different ways of escaping combat. That's exactly how you want to work this. Now imagine if you had a partner that you were also playing with. If you have another player, you can influence them as well. You can make them do magical damage so that you can get someone out of combat with chloroform, or you can do physical to get rid of them with chicken claw. You have all these different ways of killing people, which is very nice for what you're trying to go for. So anyways, in the comments below, tell me what you guys think. Tell me what sort of things you did to make it a little bit more spiced up. I'm very interested, and Divinity Original Sin allows you to do a variety of different builds. Hell, there's probably ones that are even better than this one, but I figured I'd show you a really fun way of playing as a Shadowdancer. Anyways, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.